Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the 1,775 poems that are collected in the Johnson edition of Emily Dickinson. We turned out a poem 93, went up a year this evening. The poem first appeared actually in the Independent on the 5th of February in 1891. It was called Emigravite. Emigravite, and it was published in 1891 under the title of Gone. Now, this is another one of Emily's death poems, as it's sometimes referred to. We know from the biographers, Wisher and others, that Emily was very interested in the passing of people, and I mean by this, the literal moment of death. She even would write about someone close to her wanting to know specifically how did he die. So we're going to here make an observation about someone that she watched die, a man that she watched die exactly a year ago, and she's going to make comments about how he died well. Now I want you to pay attention to word choice in this poem. She'll, for example, for the only time in all of her poetry, use the word tourist. And I also want you to pay attention to all the exclamation points, 8 of them in this little poem. Let's enjoy. She says, "Went up a year this evening. I recollect it well, amid no bells nor bravos, the bystanders will tell. Cheerful as to the village, tranquil as to repose, chastened as to the chapel, this humble tourist rose, did not talk of returning, alluded to no time when, were the gales propitious, we might look for him, was grateful for the roses in life's diverse bouquet, talked softly of new species to pick another day, beguiling thus the wonder, the wondrous nearer drew. Hands bustled at the moorings, the crowd respectful grew, ascended from our vision to countenances new. A difference, a daisy is all the rest, I knew." Now, I find this a fascinating poem because it will fit in colleague with so many other poems that we've already studied. Again, our assumptions here are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net down that left-hand side. Again, Chats with Emily, our playlist. And I'm hopeful that you already were introduced to our set of introductory comments. We just finished with poem 92, My Friend Must Be a Bird. And now as we look at this poem, she's had a year to kind of qualify what the experience was like when she watched someone, a tourist, go. Notice all of the sailing motifs. We've seen this already in our earlier study of some of Emily's poetry. Notice the death language, as we'll call it. But notice its interesting word choice. So, for example, she doesn't say he died. She said he went up a year this evening. And then I recollect it well. In other words, I was paying attention. Amid, notice the negative language. And this will make us, obviously, remind us of John Donne's valediction forbidding mourning. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. Amid no bells nor bravos. Now, we're going to get to this whole thing of bells and ostentation when we meet poem 98, just a few poems later. So pay attention when we meet that. We'll hear echoes of this. But here, amid no bells, no bravos, the bystanders will tell. In other words, he didn't need a lot of ceremony. The pomp, the word pomp will get used in poem 98. The bystanders will tell. And then notice the trinities. Cheerful as to the village, tranquil as to repose, chastened as to the chapel. This humble tourist rose, so went up, rose. In other words, there's this idea of he died well. And I mean, we've commented on this in our studies, for example, of Dickens' The Christmas Carol, and the suggestion that Socrates will make several times in Phaedo and elsewhere, that when it comes to the moment of death, you can tell a lot about an individual. And as we've often said in room 303, everyone's probably going to say the same words at the moment of expiration. The words are, "Oh my God." The question is the inflection of the voice. Most of us didn't live a life so well that we're excited to leave it, and to that degree we'll say, "Oh my God," as in the inflection of our voices maybe a little bit subdued or maybe even incredulous. And notice here, he was cheerful, he was tranquil, he was chastened, and then he was humble, right, as the tourist rose. And then he did not talk of returning. Now, the ironies here, of course, abound. In other words, he lived a life well enough that he didn't need to reincarnate. He didn't need to come back. Alluded to no time when were the gales propitious. Now we're back to the old the idea of sailing a boat and good winds and all of that. Makes us obviously think of Yeats's sailing to Byzantium, huh? When were the gales propitious, we might look for him. And again, one more of these exclamation points. And then, as if playing off of the word rose and roses, was grateful for the roses. And this could be read ironic, as in he already is recognizing that people are producing flowers in his death, you know. But it could be she's speaking metaphorically. He was grateful for the good opportunities of his life, in life's diverse bouquet. In other words, in all of the different flowers that came his way, he was grateful for the roses. Of course, we're going to have daisies later, which will juxtapose this use of the word rose here. Talked softly, notice the brilliance of an adverb like this, talked softly of new species to pick another day. In other words, he enjoyed the experience of his life, beguiling thus the wonder, and that's an interesting use of the word wonder, the wondrous nearer drew. In other words, here at the end of his life, he's ready. Hands bustled at the moorings, and again, this idea of fixing up the ship, getting ready for the ship. The crowd, and now we're back to the bystanders, respectful grew. And it does make us think of the valediction forbidding mourning, as virtuous men pass mildly away and whisper to their souls to go, while some of their sad friends do say the breath goes now, and some say no. That the bystanders, those who are watching, obviously don't want to see their pal leave. And then we're back to the opening lines, and rose and ascended here from our vision. Now obviously there's some Christ-like language here in Christ's ascension, no question. To countenances new. In other words, off he went. And this takes us back to an earlier poem where she played around with the 1 Corinthians 15 project, right? A difference, dash, a daisy, dash, is all the rest I knew. Back to the fallibilist position, as we commented on it in our introductory set of comments. The idea that she doesn't know exactly what death is, but she's willing to postulate. By the way, the use of daisy 6 times in her poetry, in poems 85, 72, 46, 29, 28, and 22. Obviously, several of those we've already mentioned. It's interesting how Emily herself will often identify with the daisy. Now, what are we going to do with a little poem like this at 2A? Well, I think that the argument she's making is try to meet death with a sense of friendship, kinship, maybe even see death as a visitor worthy of one's time. And again, the idea here is to try to enjoy your life as a tourist, back to be now in word choice. And that makes us obviously think of Walt Whitman's passage to India. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. Talks with Walt is that playlist. I've mentioned Donne's valediction forbidding mourning. I could mention John Donne's Holy Sonnet 10 as well, Death Be Not Proud. And as well, Dylan Thomas's Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, Rage Against the Dying of the Light. I've given full lectures at learnstrong.net on all of these titles. Finally, at 3B, how are we going to own a text like this? Well, how do you imagine that you would like to leave? Will your hands be busy at the moorings and the like? And have you ever yourself witnessed a tourist leaving? And obviously the connection, the background of this poem. To what degree does this poem help you think about what it's like to leave as a tourist? Thank you.